Hello, everyone. Kim Victoria here. And I had promised that I would do a few sewn pillowcase style or sewn in general uh, journal covers. So this one was quite an interesting experiment. I used fabric I've never used before. I used an interfacing I've never used before. I had an experience I'd never had before, but it worked. And I'm pleased with this journal, how it came out, this journal cover. I do have a signature for it, and I will put a link in the description box to the flip through because I did both of these at once. I just made the flip through a separate video. So if you are interested in the possibility of making a slip cover with cardboard on the inside, and I also included pockets, which you don't have to. You can keep this project as simple or you can make it more complex, as is your pleasure. So if you decide to join me, you will see my struggles, my successes, and this is the different parts and pieces that I wound up with. So let's get started. What I want to help you with today is just some fabric things and making a journal cover with this fabric that maybe will help you not run into some problems that I've already experienced in my life. Because, this is all, it's all about experience. And what I have here is actually a polyester knit fabric. I found this at a charity shop. And what we know about the knit fabrics, I mean, they're very stretchy. It, stretchy on the horizontal from side to side, then they're sturdy on the warp side where the salvage edges are. Oh, I hope I'm saying that well for you. And this also, so I picked this up because I thought, oh, isn't that pretty? And it has um, the style, I believe I'm saying this right, Joie de Vivre. It is a French style, an older style of countryside, um, joy of life, having, it's just the beauty of life. And this one fits with that. And a lot of times what you'll see are people out in the garden by the barn with animals. This one does have some little fields and there's some little houses tucked in here and there, but primarily, as you can see, it has mushrooms and all of this. But they're going in two different directions. Okay, so now that creates a problem for us to have a right side up journal cover. So what I have here is I've got a cereal box and I have reinforced the spine to be two pieces of cardboard because cereal boxes are more flexible. And so I'm looking at all of this and going like, okay, what direction can and where can I put this so that I can have right side up all the way across front to back because I want to sew this pillowcase kind of cover. And even if I wasn't sewing a pillowcase kind of cover, I would still want something that was right side up. And that I have found a spot. I'm going to have to leave out like there's a turtle over here, but it's surrounded with upside down elements. And there's a frog over here, but it is surrounded by upside down elements. But it seems we have a little passage here. And that's why you want to have enough material. When you've got material that's got both directions going, you want to get enough to allow for that kind of, um, placement of things. So I could see here kind of where I can have the cover and I can cut selvage seam allowances and be able to have a mostly right side up image. So what I did was I've got a piece of tracing paper here. This, I could see through this. So I can see that, okay, and it needs to be just a little bit wider, but I can see, okay, this is upside down and this is upside down, but this is right side up, right side up, right side up, right side up, and right side up. Okay. And this is right side up. So I also want to see, okay, what's going to be on my front cover. So I hope you don't mind me going into this detail. I know chattiness, it doesn't always work for everybody, but this is, it's all good info, I hope. So what I'm seeing here is my front cover can bridge these elements really well. So I've got this little element, I've got this element, I've got a butterfly over here. And so this would be what my front cover looks like. And I don't mind having a little bit of a corner up there. I can always slide it down just a little bit and make sure I get all of this element. So yes, using tracing paper is very handy. So knowing that, I can put, this is where my spine is. And so then what I see, okay, I'm going to bridge the gap here. So then what I see is my back cover is going to have a plant element and it's going to have this mushroom element, and that mushroom element will go around onto the spine a little bit. So I think that this placement is what I want. So just as I did in the basic pillowcase cover video, I'm going to use a piece of chalk. So let me see here. I'm going to use some pink chalk this time. And I do want to cut a seam allowance around this, all the way around. I'm not going to try and do a fold. I can't do a fold with this material. So I am going to mark where the edge of the boards are. I forgot to leave a little gap here. So I want to leave a little bit of a gap for that flexibility in the spine. Lovely thing again about chalk is that it rubs right off, and if it needs a little help rubbing off, a damp cloth does the trick. And because this is a polyester, almost nothing sticks to polyester. There was one thing I forgot to do here. Let's make sure, let me make sure I have lined it up with this straight edge. It wants to wiggle on me, so I have to keep, there we go. Well, I did pretty good. There we go. My goodness, it's slippery fabric. And I will be double checking this before I sew. I'm going to go through all the steps, and I think I will do a better job than I did in the first video. All right, so now that we have what's going to be on the outside of the cover, I want to do the inside of the cover, which I am doing differently than the previous video. So I'm going to start by cutting this out. And there's just, there's going to be a lot of waste in this situation. Nothing I can do about it. I am not allowing for any flaps or anything else. This is going to be very, very different from the previous video. Okay, I'm also going to be treating the fabric with some interfacing. So I will go over that with you as well. So now we're looking at for the inside cover. And maybe I can pick out a different one for that. So this is a nice cluster. No, it's the same one that's on the front. So there's this, so these are the same. These are the repeat patterns. How about if I flip it around completely? Let's look at the other direction. Maybe I can pick out a different mushroom cluster. Well, I've got a couple of them to choose from here. You know, it's fun to have something different on the inside. So how about this? So let me see here. I'm going to fold my tracing paper so that I can see just one half. I have to remember to allow for seam allowances. Very, very important. Yeah, it's amazing how much waste can occur. It just takes some time. You kind of have to keep moving around and see what you come up with. Okay, see, no seam allowance. Can be tough. All right, well, I think I'm going to go back to this one. Yeah, this is right side up. This is upside down, but it's a little obscured. Our little froggy might be a little bit upside down, but I've got a tree down here that's right side up. But I want to make sure I allow for a seam allowance again. Yeah. Well, let's see. What if, what if I do that one instead? And it doesn't, you know, it's like maybe I'll do for the inside front cover or inside back cover, and also some of it can get covered up by a belly band or a pocket or something like that. I think I'm going to go with this one because this could be toward the top of the inside cover, and I won't worry about the rest. All right, so I'm going to use the board, and I'll chalk line that. I now have what's going to be the outside of the cover. I have the inside of the back cover and the inside of the front cover. And I allowed extra here, and I'm going to have to explain it as I go along because I might cut this off, I might not. I'm doing something, you know, it's like when we get a pattern at the fabric store, we have all our instructions. Well, I'm making this up, so I don't have any instructions. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to iron on some interfacing because I really do need that. But I do see now where everything is going to go and how it's going to work. And I've also cut off a couple of pieces for a couple of pockets. And these are going to go on the inside of the journal. Now, if I wanted to, and this is something I would want to think about now, is say on, so let's take a look at that. I think that's, you know, maybe I'll do that. I might as well give you as much as possible right off the bat. How about if we had a pocket on the inside back and or the inside front or both? So we could do that. So I think I will go through the images again, and I'll see if there's anything there that maybe I'd like to add a pocket, and I can put that on right away. And what I would do is just put it across here and baste it in place. But I'll take you through it. So let me do that. Let me go get the iron-on interfacing going. And before I do any more sewing, I'll show you what's next. What I have done here is I have ironed on a craft interfacing. And it only takes a few seconds for this to get ironed on. I'm going to keep this because this is a release paper. Very handy and a large size. You just never know where you're going to find these things. It creates a very supple but stabilized fabric. It creates like a book cloth, really. It's very nice. It's just something that my sister-in-law gave me. I go like, hey, that works. Um, so what happened with this is that this is very stretchy fabric, and now it doesn't have that stretch, which is good. We want that stability, not have to worry about things getting out of shape. We want more stability with a fabric like this. So what I'm looking at now, and I take my time and really do my best to think these projects through so that I don't mess up. I want this to come out nice, and I certainly hope that I am helping anyone who's interested in doing this sort of project to be able to just go for it because it's all an experiment anyway. It really is. We just we want to create things that there are no patterns for. The fabric is still slippery, so I am going like, okay, I want to make sure it stays put and we'll get there. We'll get there. But that's why I allowed these extra wide margins. And the other thing about this interfacing is it leaves because it has no opacity of its own, it leaves the fabric a little bit translucent. I mean, I can see through it a little bit. I can even see a little bit of my chalk line all the way through, which is helpful. So all I'm doing, oh, before I do this, see, got to take my time. So I did create a couple of pockets. So let's see if those worked out. Okay, so what I want is because this is stabilized, you can't, you probably can't see it, but um, I think I'm just going to do like a little stitch along the top. I didn't realize when I cut this out, I might be able to fold it over. Yeah, take your time. It's that old measure twice, cut once. I tend to measure 3 times. I decided I would just go ahead and give you the whole thing, and you can eliminate anything you don't want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm folding over the edge here, and boy, that interfacing really makes it sturdy. It's reluctant to fold over, but I am going to run it through, I think I'll iron it first. It'll soften it up a little bit. And so the fold stays. I'll take the pins out when I run it through the iron. But I'd like the top, this is going to be a pocket on one of the inside covers, and I want it to have the fold on the top of the pocket because it makes it nice for putting things in and out of it. Makes it a little easier to get things in and out of it. And don't worry about this for the moment because we need our pockets first. So this is the inside back cover. Yes. So I made this ample for it. So before I stitch, no, that's going to be, yeah, this is the inside back cover. Yeah, whew, got to think about these things. So before I put this on the front cover, I need to attach the pockets to it. And what I will do is hem the top of the pockets. I've got one for the front and one for the back. So I'm going to hem the top of the pocket, and then I'm going to baste it. I'm going to baste it onto this back cover, inside back cover piece. Do the same with the front. And then I'll be ready to flip these over and match them up with the front cover and do the stitching on the outside. And yes, that is what I'm going to do. So let me fix this pocket and I'm going to do this and the basting and I'll be back. All right, before I stitch another inch, I gotta tell you what I'm doing and why. And it really isn't hard. It's just, again, it's figuring it out as I go along and making sure that I do things right. Now, the first thing I did is I stitched down the edge of the fabric. And if you're using a nice cotton broadcloth, denim, something like that, you don't need to use interfacing because they're sturdy enough. For this project, that would be no problem at all. For this particular material. So anything that has to do with this knit polyester material is why I have to do some of these extra steps. So that's important to share that. So what I did was I did fold this over with the iron, and the iron softened that interfacing so that it would get a nice crease on it. So I do need to use the iron with this. A lot of times with cottons, I don't need to use the iron hardly at all. So I did that, and then I basted it down outside of my pink line. And all I had to do was hold it up to the light, and I could see the pink line underneath. And I just basted it on the outside of that line. And so that way it's not going to interfere with the final stitching. Then I went in and I went, okay, how am I going to handle the center when it gets into the spine area? And this is on the inside of the cover now, okay? So this is same thing. I folded this over and hemmed the top edge of this pocket, and then I basted it down. Then I decided that what I was going to do is fold over this inside edge. And what that does is that this is where the spine is going to be. So that's like half the distance of the spine right there. And then when I fold this over, that's going to be, there we go. That's going to be about half the distance of the spine. And it'll be okay if there's a little gap. We're going to solve that at the after we've got the whole thing put together. But I need to share that. So before I make another stitch, I wanted to show you that the next step for me in this project was to fold over the spine edge of the inside cover. And the reason that I'm doing that is because when we get to stitching all the way around, this will be open and I'll be able to slip the cover boards into those openings. So I hope that makes sense. And then everything will be secure. This will be in there. I can even add glue to the cover boards because there's going to be room for those to slide in, and I'm going to make sure of that. But I needed to decide how I was going to handle the inside where the two sides of the inside cover meet. And that's how I'm choosing to do it in this project. So then it's going to be very easy to slide the covers in because this will be open on the inside. Everything, there's going to be some gluing because on the cover itself, the outside cover, I am going to be gluing the spine down. And everything's going to be stitched by then, but I'm going to be gluing the spine down after everything is stitched. And then when this is on here and this is on here, we can slide the boards in. They can be glued or not glued, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be adding some glue, but I'm going to be adding a glue that dries slowly so that it will be easy. And the nice thing about this interfacing, or probably really any interfacing you choose to use, if you choose to use interfacing. But the nice thing about this interfacing is the glue is not going to show through on the fabric. It's just going to be, it's just going to stay hidden inside between the cardboard and this interfacing, which is some sort of a plastic, really. So that's what I'm doing. The other thing I found out is that my sewing machine is not too thrilled. It's just fine with 2 layers, but 4 layers, it skipped a lot of stitches. But it's going to be mostly hidden by the signature when it's in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to fold this over and stitch it down. And I'm just leaving that nice seam allowance in there. So I'm going to go stitch this down, and then we'll be ready to put the front and back together. I'm just trying to be as thorough as possible. So I hope this is all making sense and and you're getting something out of it. All right, let me do this part. I'll be right back. Okay, so I am ready to pin this all together. And we have to work with our interior boards as well as this spine. And this is where having this ready to go is going to help, because we're not going to worry quite so much about our chalk lines that we set before. Those were our guides, and they are continuing to help us be guided. But now it's more about having this center opening coming together. And this is where the spine is going to go. So I can see the pink line underneath there. So that's enough for me. And yep, it's matching up with the cover, the front cover. So what I want is for this spine to bridge that gap. And I'm not worried if I have a little bit of a gap. That's going to be fine. It's going to work out just fine for sewing, because remember, this is 2 pieces of cardboard and this is going to get covered. So we're going to be doing that. So the main thing is that we want our boards to have that little bit of gap in between. And I want everything to be level. And I'm going to want to pin it so that I know exactly where I want to put the seam allowance, the seam line. And I gave myself plenty of extra so that I'd have that wiggle room. And I always consider that really important in these ad lib sorts of projects, right? So I'm just going to have to hold things in place, and I'll do one side at a time, because I've really lost where my chalk lines are going to be accurately. So I can reestablish that now that I have my placement, now that I have my inside fabric ready to go. I want to have new chalk lines. And I want to keep these things level with each other. So I'm making sure that I have my straight edge up against the bottom of this board. So a lot of kind of funky holding down stuff. And as long as this and this are level, I can go ahead and draw this chalk line. Now, unlike the basic pillowcase cover that I did in the previous video, this one, I am going to be stitching not directly on the chalk line. I'm going to be stitching towards the outside of it. Again, I want some wiggle room, and glue is going to help stabilize the boards. And there's not going to be a lot of um, what am I trying to say? I want to have some wiggle room, but I'm going to be able to do nice straight lines with the sewing machine, and it's going to work out just fine. Because then, so when we look at this, and I don't want to move anything, I want to go ahead and pin everything in place. And I am going to be sewing on the just on the outside of the chalk line. Because remember, the other thing is that the boards themselves, though it's not a lot of width, do have some width that makes them tight inside the cover. Just trying to anchor everything down here while, and everything is very, because this is a plasticky interfacing, everything is kind of difficult to poke through, which you would not have if you were using a cotton without this coating on it. So there's just a few factors here. I chose a material that was a little more complex to use, but if I'm going to show you something, I guess I just sort of like, I want to show you all the various issues you might come up with. If you go to using a cotton fabric, which I recommend for the first time you do something like this, um, it's going to be a piece of cake. And then I tend to take on challenges, and I liked the appearance of this material, so that's why I picked it up. But it's proving to have some issues that cotton material wouldn't have. So that's just important for you to know. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the sewing machine. I'm just going to start in the middle. And as I said, I'm going to stitch on the outside of my pink line. I'm just going to go all the way around because I have this opening when it's turned right side out. But I don't think you need to watch the sewing machine for this. I'm just going to put the needle in and I'm going to do a straight stitch and go all the way around the outside of the pink line. Then I'll bring it back and we'll do trimming and turning it right side out and the magic will happen. Okay. I discovered while I was stitching that, boy, I was having a lot of missed stitches and jams and stuff. So I finally realized time to change the needle, and then it went fine. So what you see is kind of messy, but it's gonna be on the inside, right? But before I turn it right side out, oh, look at that. They slip in very nicely. And this one slips in nice because, we don't want it loose. We want it to be a snug fit. And then there's our gap, and that's where the spine cardboard is going to go. So I'll just finagle that in. I want to make sure everything's okay before I do anything else. Okay, so you can see we have a little space in between. The covers go all the way to the end, and we have this here coming together in the middle. Okay, so now I just need to do all of the seam allowance trimming. Whew, yeah, they fit. That is what we want. We want everything to fit. Okay, ta-da. Oh, golly. Yes, a good needle makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do some trimming. Okay, there is our cover. And what I need to do now is take it to the iron and press that down. I'm going to take a little damp cloth and rub off the rest of the chalk lines. And then we're going to be ready to insert our boards. Whew, and then I'll be able to add the signature. I'll be doing a little something here too. But there is a pillowcase, and it's going to be very easy. Once I've flattened those seams out, it's going to be very easy to slip those boards in, but everything is kind of crinkled right now. Okay, I'm going to go to the iron and do that. Here is the finished cover. And it looks very nice, and I'm happy with how it came out. And it seems like I have skipped a step on you, and you're right, I have. Um, this is what happened. I finished sewing the cover and turned it right side up, and I wanted to see about slipping the cardboard in, so I slipped the cardboard in on both sides. It's in there, honest. And then I went to the iron and I decided I would give it another ironing just to kind of, flatten it out with the cardboard in there and see how that worked. Well, what happened is this craft bond product that is a kind of a plastic is it bonded itself to the cardboard and it bonded itself to itself. That's what's happening right here. I mean, I could really force it to separate it, but why? I wanted to see if the cardboard worked and it fit and it slid in and it did. But this product can be a little bit fussy. Another thing that happened is when I was ironing it, it started to close this pocket and this pocket. So I reheated it with the iron and I stuck in and I separated it so it would come apart again. So heaven help this journal if ever it's in a hot car, I'll tell you. This is what the product is. And as I said, I think at the beginning was that this was given to me along with a lot of different interfacings from my sister-in-law who isn't sewing anymore. So it actually is a pretty nice product, but you've got to be careful. So I can't recommend it. You can see the shine here. This is actually a plastic and it's on a paper backing. And it ironed on beautifully and I think for this project, it was an interesting experiment. And I'm showing you this because I do so appreciate artists and craftspeople who share their successes, but also share what maybe was more difficult, what maybe you might consider a failure, what maybe you might consider as like, well, this was a worthy experiment, but I don't think I'm going to do it again. So this product, now that I understand this product, I still have quite a bit of yardage. This came as a 5-yard pack and only a little bit was missing. So I'm going to remember that this is useful for certain things, but I don't think I'm ever going to, well, I can guarantee I'm never going to use it for a journal again because um, it has a mind of its own in that way. But this, I think it's really nice. I mean, this is a wonderful journal cover. I'm happy with it. The one thing that didn't get in is the spine. And as it turns out, I had already made a signature, and it's going to be very nice for this signature, which I am going to sew in. I will do the flip through in a separate video that will be short and to the point, but I had made the signature to match the cover, and I don't need I don't need a spine. This is very sturdy stuff, so I'm not going to worry about adding cardboard to this spine. What I did do that was extra is I sewed the salvage edge, the long direction. So this doesn't stretch. This is nice and sturdy. I did not put any of that bonding material inside. I just folded it over, and this is going to make a nice closure. And then I went, okay, I can't see myself using this fabric for anything else because there's only some scraps left. I mean, I've got a few bits and pieces. I've got a long strip. I don't know what I'll do with it, if anything. I'm happy with the journal cover. I'm happy with the signature. I'm going to finish this project and show it in a flip through. But I went, you know what? I'm going to make this journal a pouch. It's going to be a nice pouch with a flap that, I think that's going to be really nice. I did use more of that heat bond material to give this fabric more strength because it's very thin and flexible. So I do have now this pouch. So everything is going to go in the flip through. So I hope that my experiment here was informative. This works really well as a way of slipping your cardboard into the covers, and they can be glued in place because when this was open, I could have put glue on the cardboard, slipped it in, and just adhered it. But this craft bond material adhered it. So this cardboard's not going anywhere. It is in there. The signature is in there. When I sew it in, it's going to be just fine. So here is this sewing project that is a slip cover pillowcase kind of thing. I hope this was informative. And if you're still here, thank you for watching. And I hope you enjoyed some of these ideas. And visit me in the thrift through and you can see what I did with the single signature. All right. Bye for now.